All right, welcome to this segment involving the building of a phylogeny for deuterostomes. So this is going to include all the deuterostomes, and this is going to be from the information provided in the Campbell Biology book, the most recent one, and will include deuterostomes that were discussed at the end of chapter 33, and of course, all of chapter 34. All right, let's start with an ancestral deuterostome. So this is the start of all the deuterostomes. And remember, we're combining information from chapter 33 and chapter 34. So this will be the ancestral deuterostome. And if you remember, I'm going to kind of stretch this on over. We're going to start with those that are invertebrates. Okay, so these are invertebrates. All right, so we have a couple different groups of invertebrates. All right, so we're going to kind of take it like this and then stretch this way, and you'll see how this works out in just a moment. So from chapter 33, we have the Echinodermata. The Echinodermata divide into 5 major groups. So let's go ahead and write those out. That includes the Asteroidea, the Ophiuroidea, the Echinoidea, the Crinoidea, and the Holothuriidea. All right, so that's the Echinodermata. And again, these are invertebrates. And then we have a couple other groups that of invertebrates that are also chordates. So this right here begins the chordates group. Okay, so these are all chordates. Okay, these from chapter 33 are not chordates. Okay, so chordates, there are 4 specific characteristics that chordates have at some point during their development. And that includes a notochord, a dorsal hollow nerve cord, pharyngeal slits or clefts, and a postanal tail. And the first basal group of the chordates are the cephalochordata. Cephalochordata. Those are the lanceolents. And the urochordata. Those are the tunicates. Okay, so we have the lanceolets and the tunicates. These are chordates, but they are not vertebrates, right? So there's a difference between chordates and vertebrates. So vertebrates are next. Okay, so we have the large group of vertebrates. And again, these are going to have a backbone. So let's divide those into 2 sister groups. Okay, so we have 2 sister groups of vertebrates, the cyclostomes and the gnathostomes. The G is silent. Okay, so we have the cyclostomes and the gnathostomes. Stoma means kind of the mouth or the jaw area. Cyclostomes have a circular mouth or jaw. They don't really have a jaw. Okay, so these have no jaw. These do not have a circular mouth, but they do have a jaw. The cyclostomes includes 2 groups, and that's the Myxidae, or hagfish, and the Petromyzontida. Petromyzontida. and that includes the lamprey. Then the gnathostomes divide into several groups. Again, these have jaws. Okay, so we're going to start with the chondrichthyes. Okay, so that's the sharks, rays, and chimeras. And then, so the chondrichthyes and the osteichthyes, or osteichthyans. Okay, so we have the osteichthyes. The osteichthyes divide into a couple different groups, and that includes the Actinotergy, those are the ray fin fish. Okay, ray fins, and the lobe fins. Okay, so lobe fins includes also the tetrapods. So the earlier lobe fins do not have any limbs, but of course the tetrapods do have limbs, specifically limbs with digits. So let's put in the Sarco Tergy. Okay, so Sarco Tergy, that's a S-A-R. And yeah, sorry if this is a little bit sloppy, this is hard to work with, and these words are quite long. Actinistia. The Actinistia include the coelacanths and the dipnoi, right? So then we have the dipnoi, which divide with the tetrapods. All right, so the tetrapods is the larger group, and the dipnoi go here. So the dipnoi include the lungfish. Okay, so these are lungfish. The tetrapods divide into several groups. Now we're going to start with tetrapods. So we have tetrapods, tetrapoda. Tetrapoda divide into two major groups, and we're going to kind of put one of them over here and one of them way over here. One of them is the amphibians, and the other one is the amniotes. Okay, so we have the amphibians and the amniotes. All right, so let's divide out the amphibians first, because that's the simplest. And again, amphibians, really amphibia means to live both ways, so they live in water and on land at some point at various different times during their life cycle. So we have the Urodela, the Anura, and the Apoda. The Urodela are the salamanders, the Anura are going to be the frogs, and the Apoda are caecilians, which look like worms, however they are not. Now the amniotes divide into two major groups, and we're going to kind of bring these all the way like this. The diapsids and the synapsids. And this is referring to a temporal fenestra, which is a hole in the skull. So the diapsids have two and the synapsids have one. Let's start with the diapsids, which really includes, the majority of them are going to be reptilia. So reptilia is the official name. A diapsid is just a description or a major group based on a characteristic. So these are going to divide into three major groups, which further divide. So we have the turtles, and then we have the archosaurs, and the lepidosaurs. The archosaurs divide into two major groups, and that includes the crocodilians and the birds. Then we have the lepidosaurs, that's an L right here. That divides into a couple different groups. We have the twatras, which are small lizard-like organisms or animals that live in only specific regions. And then we have the actual lizards and the snakes. All right, so remember, some lizards that are actually characterized as lizards, they do not have limbs, so they look like snakes. And again, all of these are considered tetrapods based on phylogenetic analysis. Now, let's move on to the synapses, which really is the majority, just like reptilia here, we have the mammals. Oh, mammal, M-A-M. So, mammalia. The mammals divide into several major groups, so we'll go ahead and spread these out over here. So I'm going to focus on only certain ones. The Eutherians, and those are not the basal groups. So the basal groups of mammals include the monotremes, the marsupials, and of course the Eutherians. Now we're going to divide the Eutherians out a little bit further. And the Eutherians divide into others, right? So others like pangolins. But we're going to focus on the primates. So we'll focus on the primates because we're going to take it all the way to humans. All right, so the first primates were going to be the lemurs, lorises, and bush babies. And then we have another group, which would be the tarsiers. And then we have another group, which is going to include the New World monkeys. So I'm just going to put NW monkeys. And then, interestingly, the Old World monkeys is next. Old World monkeys. And then we have the gibbons. And then we have the orangutans. And then we have the gorillas. And then we have the two sister groups, the chimps and humans. And this is us right here. All right, so we are the most recent on this tree. Who knows what's going to be next? All right, thank you for watching. I highly recommend making your own and maybe adding some characteristics for each of the major groups.